So, when we think about the end of the biblical story, our minds usually go to these huge cosmic battles. But what if the whole grand finale is actually a tale of two cities? A story about two competing visions for where humanity is headed.
That's the big question we're going to dig into, because according to our source material, the book of Revelation really frames this ultimate showdown as a clash between two symbolic cities. One is all about worldly power and materialism, and the other, it's all about divine purity and faith.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to introduce these two cities, then do a deep dive into Babylon, the city of materialism. We'll look at its shocking collapse, the arrival of its total opposite, and what all this means for believers who are called to stand strong and find protection right in the middle of the storm.
Okay, let's get right to the heart of it. You can really see the final chapters of Revelation as this ultimate spiritual showdown, and it's personified by two very, very different female figures, who each represent a city.
And wow, the contrast here is it's so stark. On one side, you have Babylon, pictured as a prostitute, a symbol for total corruption. And on the other side, the New Jerusalem, symbolized as a pure bride representing absolute faithfulness. Now, of course, these aren't literal women. They're these incredibly powerful symbols for two opposing ways of life and two very different final destinations.
So let's zoom in on that first city, Babylon. What does it actually stand for? Well, according to the text, it's the ultimate symbol of worldly power, a civilization built entirely on human ambition and the love of stuff.
And to really get what Babylon means, you have to go way back, all the way back to the Tower of Babel in Genesis. Remember that story? It's all about concentrated human pride trying to build its own way to heaven. So ever since then, Babylon has been biblical shorthand for any system that's godless, secular, and just plain wicked.
So what does this city look like when we get to the end of the story? The text paints a picture of it being the world's financial capital, a place completely devoted to money, pleasure, and materialism. It's a pagan city, not a religious one, and it's where all of humanity's pride and ambition come together. It is the ultimate enemy of Jerusalem, the city of God.
And that brings us right back to that really vivid metaphor. Why a prostitute? Well, think about it. It perfectly captures the transactional soul of the city. The system basically says, give me your money, your worship, your loyalty, and I'll give you pleasure, power, and security. It's the ultimate materialistic bargain. Trade your soul for the stuff of this world.
Now, a city this powerful, this wealthy, it seems untouchable, right? But the Bible is crystal clear. Babylon is going down. And the way it happens? Well, it's probably not what you're expecting.
And here's the twist. Babylon isn't just zapped by a lightning bolt from heaven. No, it gets destroyed from the inside out by politicians. The big idea here is that any system built on greed and pride is fundamentally unstable. Eventually, it's going to collapse under its own weight.
So how does this actually happen? Well, the political leaders start to get super jealous of all the power the commercial world has. They feel like it's the businessmen and the banks who are really calling the shots. And right at that boiling point, the text says God puts an idea into their heads, turn on the global financial center, and destroy it. The system literally eats itself.
Okay, so if you're a believer living through all of this chaos, what are you supposed to do? The text lays out three very clear instructions. First, you've got to acknowledge that this system is going to persecute you. Second, there's a direct command. Come out of her, my people. Basically, get out for your own safety so you don't get swept up in the collapse. And third, and this is wild, when the entire world's economic system implodes, believers are told to sing hallelujah.
So with the city of man lying in ruins, the stage is finally clear. It's time for the arrival of its divine counterpart, the city of God.
And I mean, you just can't get more night and day than this. Everything Babylon was built on, pride, greed, pleasure, corruption, the New Jerusalem is the exact opposite. It's founded on purity, faith, hope, and divine order. They're polar opposites.
And that's why the symbolism of the pure bride is so crucial. She represents a community, the church, that is faithful, undefiled, and totally prepared for God. She has everything Babylon is not. She represents a community defined by its covenant relationship, not by its commercial transactions.
But this all leads to a massive question, right? Are believers even going to be here to see all this happen? According to this interpretation, the answer is a resounding yes. And that leads to a powerful call for endurance. And this verse is pointed to as Exhibit A. The argument goes like this. If all the believers were already gone from the earth, who would be left to remain faithful to Jesus? The whole point of these detailed prophecies, it's argued, is that the church will be here and needs to be prepared for what's coming.
You know, this totally reframes how we think about comfort. When we hear that word, we think of something soft and soothing, right? But the word itself has fort in it, like a fortress. Biblically, comfort isn't about making you feel cozy, it's about making you strong. It's about building you into a fortress that can handle the pressure.
So if believers are actually present during this time of great trouble, how in the world do they survive? Well, the text gives us a pattern for protection, a kind of fortress of faith that's actually drawn from a classic story in the Old Testament.
And this is just a brilliant parallel. The source draws a direct line to the plagues in Egypt. While all this terrible judgment was falling on Egypt, where were God's people? They were kept completely safe in the land of Goshen. The point is, God is perfectly capable of protecting his people in the middle of judgment. They don't have to be removed from it to be safe. So, when you boil it all down, the final message here isn't about getting a free pass to escape the storm. It's about being strengthened so you can stand right through it. It's a direct challenge. Stand firm, overcome, stay loyal.
And that really brings it all home for us, right here, right now. In a world that seems to look a little more like Babylon every single day, valuing materialism, pleasure, and power above all else, what does it actually look like for you and me to build our own fortress of faith? What does it mean to stand firm?